Hello, my name is Lisa Wilding Brown, Chief Executive Officer of InnovateMR, a global sampling and ResTech firm based in Calabasas, California, and a proud supporter of the MRS. I'm thrilled to be here today to tell you that it is time to get real. Today's presentation will be discussing the painful realities of cyber fraud in the insight space, and I'm about to share a truth bomb with you. There is no silver bullet to eradicate survey fraud. I've spent the lion's share of my career studying survey fraudsters, understanding their tactics, and building solutions to be more proactive in catching these nefarious users. I'm deeply passionate about this topic, and I strongly believe it's time for our industry to have a major wake-up call. We need to stop telling ourselves that there's a magic fix for this complex and dynamic issue. In my testing over the years, I've seen sample providers, large and small, deal with this problem. It isn't a matter of if, but when you'll encounter an issue with sample quality. Remember, the internet is a very dynamic and messy place. The tactics leveraged by cyber fraudsters continue to morph and change, creating a very reactionary position for the insights industry. According to Accenture, 68% of businesses today feel that their cybersecurity is at risk on multiple fronts. And this is expected to rise in future years as fraudsters become increasingly sophisticated. So how does it take shape? Certainly, straight lining, speeding, and poor verbatim comments are quick indications of bad actors taking your survey. But these signals have become much more nebulous as fraudsters and bots have become more humanistic in nature. Years ago, bots were easy to catch in a survey, and they typically completed in a much shorter period of time and demonstrated very patterned behaviors. In today's world, bots cleverly emulate human behavior much more closely. They avoid patterns in their data. They use real personal, albeit stolen, information and multiple devices to throw us off their trail. This makes the job of sample providers and researchers that much more challenging. So let's get real with ourselves. Let's stop thinking that firing a sample provider is the answer. I promise you that virtually every single provider of sample in our ecosystem has firsthand experience with this problem. So putting businesses in the penalty box will not eradicate your problems, nor will it stop the significant risks on data quality. But you don't have to be a routine victim. There are both tactical and strategic things that you can do to better position yourself and produce higher quality results. But first, let's take a look at the landscape as it exists today, learn more about how fraud is looking in 2022, and go deeper into the strategies employed. Let's start with some context. Quality is not a binary challenge. It isn't a matter of good versus bad or yes versus no. There are several permutations that you should be mindful of. Today's presentation will focus on nefarious users, those that set out with bad intentions and leverage different techniques to bring scale and damage to our space. But of course, we shouldn't forget that there are other scenarios to be aware of too. As we move across the spectrum, we have real people, just maybe not the right ones for your survey. These participants aren't operationalizing their bad behavior like the fraudsters, but they can still have a damaging effect should there be a high concentration of them in your study. Over-endorsers typically come from highly incentivized sites who provide instant gratification when it comes to rewards. They suffer from every ailment on the list, use every product, and are hyper-satisfied, to name a few. Moving further along, we have participant fatigue. This stems from poorly designed surveys or the method of procurement itself. Grids are great from a computational perspective, but they tire out good participants who soon zone out. Fatigue can also set in long before a participant enters your survey. Sample routers are engines that are used to allocate online traffic into surveys and are focused on optimizing the conversion rate of the sample, but they can be incredibly frustrating for participants. These factors, along with other design modes, should be carefully considered. And lastly, we have duplication, which can occur naturally when using multiple sources to deliver against your study. Each of these use cases can be problematic, and the solutions used to address each one should specifically tackle the nature of the issue at hand. To set the stage further, global cyber fraud costs a lot. Cybersecurity Ventures, a leading security publisher, was recently featured in Forbes magazine, and they've successfully projected global damages in the past and have since retuned their prediction for the future. According to the firm, cyber fraud will cost a whopping $10.5 trillion globally by the end of 2025. Let that sink in. If cyber fraud were a country, it would be the world's third largest economy after the US and China. It would be exponentially larger than any damages caused by every natural disaster in the world for 1 year, and more profitable than every illegal drug trade combined. It's a very real and material problem, not only for our industry, but many others as well. But all is not lost. While there is no magic bullet or easy fix to this challenge, we can get smarter. As an industry, we need to be having an open dialogue about this topic and study the tactics employed by these malicious users. So let's take a look at their tactics a bit more closely. I should know that a copy of this presentation will be shared by our friends at the MRS, and I'd like to encourage attendees to take a few minutes to review some of the videos I'm about to reference. Unfortunately, we won't have time today to play the videos, but instead I'll provide you with the cliff notes here. Here's a video of a gentleman sharing his expertise on how to build a device farm. Here he gives guidance on how to purchase unique phones inexpensively and host a farm of devices. Based on his background image here, you can tell he's been a very, very busy fraudster. Need a survey bot? Not to worry. This YouTuber has a ready-made bot that you can easily use, and you can even upgrade to a more powerful version with an additional fee, should you have the desire to. Having trouble figuring out the blueprint of success and what the insight space routinely looks for? No problem. This YouTuber will get you all trained up on how to fake your way through even the most complex screeners. Need help hiding your true geolocation? Not an issue when you tune into this video. This YouTuber helps viewers leverage residential proxies, which serve to hide their true location. The challenge is that both fraudsters and good internet users make use of these services. You might want to hide your IP address for various reasons, such as to protect your personal identity or stream content that's geo-blocked. Or if you're a fraudster, you might need to scrape data from several websites, run many accounts from the same machine, upload or download torrents via P2P connections, to name a few. No matter the reason, there are many ISPs that offer these services, and it allows a user to quickly change their geolocation and true identity. As researchers, we often dedicate more time designing a survey instrument than we do on data collection and field management. We lament over our screener questions and do our best to hide the true qualification path. But this doesn't deter the fraudsters. There are countless videos online like this one, which provide guidance on the audience targets that we routinely look for and instruct fraudsters on how best to respond in order to achieve qualification. Last year at a different conference, I presented data from our amazing partners at CleanID, a digital fingerprinting technology offered by a company in our space known as OpinionRoute. Their ecosystem data showed a 228% increase in fraudulent activity in the survey space since the start of the pandemic. This data was pulled across their extensive portfolio of clients, which represent MR agencies, panel companies, aggregators, and programmatic sample firms. COVID-19 has had a tremendous impact on all of us, and the fraudsters are no exception. They saw the pandemic as a massive opportunity to supplement lost income, and they demonstrated incredible flexibility and technical prowess. Once again, CleanID has graciously shared with me the latest snapshot of their ecosystem, representing over 50 million user transactions. The data shows us that the industry is still experiencing significant fraud, having stabilized at 10 to 12% over the last 6 months. And the most serious fraud has held 20% of the overall fraud volume. The industry isn't catching everything, nor are we able to due to the volume and advanced fraud innovation hitting our sector. If we fail to be as dynamic and unpredictable as the fraudsters, we'll continue to be extremely vulnerable. What we need to do as an industry is update our tactics in the same fashion and cadence as antivirus providers, such as Norton or McAfee, who regularly update their software to react to new and emerging computer viruses. My big takeaway here is that the DNA of fraud is really changing. Just like there are new strains and variants of the pandemic we're facing, there are new permutations of fraud for us to be mindful of. In fact, according to CleanID, they saw a significant change in the tactics employed by fraudsters last year and have suggested that it completely morphs every 8 months. Gone are the days where fraudsters leverage basic tools to hide their identity. Illegitimate VPN usage has declined by nearly 50%. Classic proxy usage has decreased by over 70%, while residential proxies, which are far more advanced, have increased by over 250%. And variable device attributes have increased by over 100%. Basic fraud has now been eclipsed by much more sophisticated and dynamic tactics, making it that much harder to identify. Relying solely on device-based technology to mitigate risk is a recipe for failure. We know from our research that it's become increasingly easy for fraudsters to appear unique and leverage multiple devices to throw us off their trail. The device attributes configured by fraudsters are developed to look like typical participants, and they easily make their way into our survey if this is your only line of defense. Fraud doesn't start in our industry, though. We are a victim of it, and our surveys are the benefactors of this victimization. But this nefarious behavior starts much earlier and further upstream to the source where our samples originate, the affiliate publisher space and ad tech in general. So let's explore what's happening upstream to better ascertain how fraud makes its way into our ecosystem. As you can see from the chart included on this slide, fraud in the ad tech space has experienced incredible growth over the last several years, and it's projected to hit $100 billion in damages by 2023 in this sector alone. It's important to note here that the fraud happening in this space is mature and sophisticated, and this directly impacts our industry, as this digital arena is the primary sourcing ground for online research panels and sample marketplaces. So how does one become a survey fraudster? The next couple of slides will walk you through how these individuals build a successful business model, leverage the tools available, and ultimately make their way into our surveys. The key takeaway featured on this slide is that one can become a fraud entrepreneur with ease. Many assume that you need an advanced degree in computer science, but there are many legitimate tools that are available that can be easily leveraged by these bad actors. So how does one get started? You can easily rent a virtual data center for $120, which will help you transform a single computer into 1,000 virtual computers with unique device features. You can then rent a residential proxy service for $60 to spoof your geolocation and IP address. You can leverage the AWS QA virtual device farm, which was created to help developers test different applications across an extensive range of desktop browsers and real mobile devices. But of course, this service is also used by cybercriminals. Fraudsters can also use Google Puppeteer for bot management. This free tool was first built to make the lives of developers easier and their testing of different workflows more efficient. However, just as developers who want to automate tests can reap the benefits of a simple yet powerful automation framework, people with nefarious intentions can as well. These frameworks give our adversaries the power to run the same browsers that our survey participants use, enabling them to evade detection and blend in with all the noise that exists on the internet today. So how does the upfront expense for fraudsters take shape, and what is the upside? This slide speaks for itself and certainly helps to explain why our industry is a target. With some nominal upfront costs, the return on investment is incredible. On the consumer side, a casual fraudster can make $120,000 annually with ease. For B2B research, which is a common target due to the high incentive payouts, a fraudster can cash in further at $180,000 annually. I should point out that this model is conservative, and there are known fraudsters out there who conduct their activities at a much, much higher scale. A term that's widely used across the ad tech space is identity graph. In the fraud space, fraudsters click on ads and content that the identity graph or persona would do. Example, let's say I'm a fraudster and I want my bot to be an IT decision maker. So I'll create a spider bot to click on any ad communicating information technology value. Once I have that phone clicking on all those IT ads, I've now built my fake persona. Ad buyers will see that person as a valuable identity graph. Programmatic sample buyers buy from ad publishers, thus they are ad tech buyers. The ad buyers ask for ITDMs, and my new fake person immediately gets exposed to an ITDM banner that says, "Want to take a survey?" I know these surveys are worth a lot, so I, the bot controller, take over the keyboard and get through the screener. Once I know I'm in the survey, I can then turn on the bot script to take the survey for me. I make sure to choose my ITDM bot script and let it finish while I check on my other devices. It's that simple. And by the way, I'm not really a survey fraudster. I've just studied them closely for years, but you get my point. And this is why there is no silver bullet, and there is no company impervious from the dangers of cyber fraud. Every source in our space leans on the ad tech sector to source participant traffic. The issue is systemic and starts far upstream from our world. Most surveys don't have anywhere near the level of security that e-commerce pay pages do for a variety of reasons. Our participants are less likely to provide critical details related to personally identifiable information that's readily handed over in the fintech and banking sectors. The trust and relationship isn't there once privacy considerations are factored in, thereby making it challenging to institute more rigorous controls within our own survey environments. The fraudsters figured out this weakness years ago and have been busy ever since. With the current solutions offered in our space today, most companies are only blocking about 13% of the bad traffic pre-survey, and clients are subsequently removing as much as 40% post-field based on the data provided from our friends over at CleanID. This puts a lot of burden on sample buyers and the quality of our insights. The key is for us to stop sticking our heads in the sand, be open and transparent, and implement multiple layers that change dynamically to filter out these bad actors. We will never eradicate these users from our ecosystem entirely. It doesn't benefit us to fire a sample provider who got hit, but rather work together to implement various layers of protection and oversight throughout the research journey. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As we take our power back, I'd like to leave you with a few closing thoughts. Remember, assumptions are very dangerous. There will always be dissonance in data. It's critical to scrutinize your data closely and work with partners that are transparent and open about the challenges facing our industry. We must always level set expectations. We need to stop looking for a cure that doesn't exist and instead focus on building a better mousetrap that leverages a multitude of both technological and methodological strategies. Relying on a single approach is truly a recipe for disaster. Next, remember that fraudsters study our ecosystem closely. They prey on predictability. Changing our tactics is key to keeping the fraudsters on their toes. Next up, remember every sample supplier has been hit with fraudulent participants at some point in their tenure. No one is impervious, but there are some who are more proactive than others. So it's important to ask the tough questions and work with partners who will give you a transparent view when things go off track. And last but not least, it's important to recognize and accept that quality really exists at the participant level. There are good and bad users in every source online. There is no such thing as perfect, and there certainly is no silver bullet, but we can do so much better. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this presentation insightful. Feel free to reach out to me at lisa@innovatemr.com should you have any questions, or if you simply want to connect. I'd love to hear from you. Many thanks and have a great day ahead.